Good morning. Good morning, everyone. The hour of 10 o'clock having arrived. All the meeting October 8, 2019 to order. And may I ask our Vice Chairman, Mr. Jim Zay, to lead us in Pledge of Allegiance. And I would ask that we all remain standing after the Pledge of Allegiance for the invocation. Vice Chairman Zay.
Thank you. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
May I invite Deacon Tom from Corpus Christi Catholic Church in Carroll Stream to lead us in invocation. Deacon.
Good morning. Let us remember that we are always in the presence of our Lord. And we begin by asking the Lord to give us thanksgiving and praise, and that we give our Lord thanksgiving and praise for our blessings, especially the blessing of our lives, our very lives, for the blessings of our families, of our faith, and of the work that we do here in DuPage County. Heavenly Father, we ask you also to bless our work this day, our conversations. We ask you to bless the decisions that will be made. Allow them always to be centered and focused on the common good of the people of this county. And we ask you to remember always those who are most vulnerable. And may Almighty God bless you all this day, Father, Son, and Holy Spirit. Amen.
Thank you, Deacon. Madam Clerk, please call the roll.
Chaplin. Here. Covert. Here. Dessart. Here. Luciani. Here. Eckhoff. Here. Elliott. Hart. Here. Healy. Here. Krajewski. Here. Larson. Here. Noonan. Ozog. Here. Pachowski. Here. Renahan. Here. Rutledge. Here. Selman. Torrentori. Here. Zay. Here. 16.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. On the order of Chairman's report, we do have a proclamation recognizing National Breast Cancer Awareness Month and the American Cancer Society proclamation. And so I'd like to invite Debbie Fager of the American Cancer Society to join me up here. Ms. Fager, and Member Larson, Bob Larson, and Mr. Tornatore, please to join me up here. Welcome. So October is the National Breast Cancer Awareness Month, a time for us to honor those who have battled and are battling breast cancer. Debbie Fager is the Hospital Systems Manager for the DuPage chapter of the American Cancer Society, and our DuPage County Health Department Director Karen Ayala couldn't be here, but she's well represented with Debbie and gentlemen here from the board. And so I'll read this proclamation. This is an annual proclamation we recognize every year, of course, and it goes as follows. Whereas an estimated 1 in 8 women will develop breast cancer in their lifetime, and 1 in 38 women will succumb to the disease. And whereas an estimated 1 in 1,000 men will develop breast cancer in their lifetime, and less than 1% of all breast cancer cases develops in men. And whereas women and men can reduce their breast cancer risk by maintaining a healthy weight and being physically active throughout their lives, and early detection and prompt treatment can significantly reduce suffering and deaths caused by this disease. And whereas the American Cancer Society is in every community providing free information and services to people fighting the disease. And whereas 1 in every 2 women newly diagnosed with breast cancer turn to the American Cancer Society for help and support. And whereas to show support for the American Cancer Society's fight against breast cancer and support those who are being treated for the disease or those who lost loved ones, residents are urged to wear or display a pink ribbon during the month of October. So now, therefore, be resolved that I, Daniel J. Cronin, Chairman of the County Board, and members of the Board, do hereby proclaim the month of October 2019 as National Breast Cancer Awareness Month in DuPage County, and support the efforts and work of the American Cancer Society. I'll entertain a motion. Seconded. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, nay. The ayes have it, enacted this 8th day of October 2019. Thank you for the good work you do, Debbie. Thank you so much. Please.
you, Mr. Cronin. I think you've given all the stats that I might have given, and numbers are what they are. They're important, but they're just numbers. I'll give you a couple quick numbers. Just this weekend, right around the corner at Cantigny in Wheaton, Cantini, grew up as Cantigny, now is it Cantini?
Cantini.
Yeah. At Cantini, we had over 2,500 breast cancer patients, survivors, caregivers, family members, and friends at our walk. We had over 250 survivors. Many of you don't even know this is right in DuPage County, right around the corner here. And at a great 3.5K walk, and we've raised over $198,000 to date, with a lot more coming. So this is the good work that's being done in your community. But these are numbers, but they are all faces. I used to ask how many here is connected to someone with breast cancer, but I don't even have to ask. So many of you here are connected to breast cancer. Raise your hands if you are. So it's obvious, most of us have some, if not breast cancer, it's another cancer. And I can say myself, as a stage 4 cancer survivor, not breast cancer, but all of us go through the same thing. And any of you who know someone know how difficult it is to have to face your mortality, to have to think about your family, and have to think about your future, and have to go through treatments. So we want to get down and see what's really going on here, is people that we all know are going through this devastating disease, and they need our support. So we want more people to be like me. I'm an 18-year survivor, supposed to live 2 years, but we need more people out there like me who are living every day and thriving. So I'm going to make 2 asks of you before I leave. There's papers that I passed out. One of the big things we're doing is a lot of husbands, caregivers, men want to be part of the pink space. So we have a program called Real Men Wear Pink. Men, through the month of October, do fundraising for us, wear pink, talk about getting a mammogram. We have, I think it's 14 men in DuPage County already. If you're interested in participating still this year, my card is available, and Joan has my contact information. Let me know if you'd like to be part of that. I'd love for members of the board next year to be part of it and come to our Strides event and let us introduce all of you as being part of that. The other thing is, I want everyone to know we have over 70 drivers in DuPage County. Those are people who drive cancer patients to treatment. It is a barrier to getting well. Please, 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 if you want to learn more about being a volunteer driver, it's really, really simple. DuPage County has the most of anywhere in the state of Illinois. We're really proud of that, but people are always falling off. So I just drove a family that was Vietnamese that didn't speak English the other day. These are people who need our help, just getting to and from their treatments. So thank you for everything. I'm sure many of you are doing so much to help with cancer, but thank you for this proclamation today, and we appreciate all you do.
Just real briefly, obviously this is personal to all of us. It's particularly personal to those of us who are on, like Sam and myself, who are on the Board of Health. I took over the seat on the county board for Linda Kurzawa, who was also our long president of the Board of Health and who had breast cancer and succumbed to cancer last year. It was a very difficult process for us, and Sam stepped up and took over as president. So that issue makes it very personal to us. We're proud of the work that we do at the Board of Health in providing cancer screening for women, and it's something that we will continue to do and support. So thank you for the tremendous work that you do.
Thank you. Thank you, Bob. Any quick picture here? Thank you, thank you, thank you. Thanks, Dan. So, on the order of chairman's remarks, a couple thoughts I'd like to share with you, please. As you heard in our last county board meeting, I included funds in our budget proposal for a study to determine whether taxpayer savings, increased efficiency, and greater accountability could be realized by consolidating the offices of the DuPage County Recorder and the County Clerk. When I first began pursuing local government consolidation as a real possibility at the county level back in 2010, I received counsel and I learned that the best, most prudent, and ultimately successful path to effective government consolidation is a thoughtful, deliberate path. The voters demand our due diligence as decision makers, and they deserve it. In each case, starting with the Crow-Horwath study that we engaged way back when, seeking the guidance of professional accountants, we developed the facts about each office, the corresponding services, programs, and initiatives delivered, and if or how service delivery could be impacted by consolidation. We did our homework. Sometimes we found consolidation to be the solution with research, data, and the facts backing up such a move. Sometimes the facts pointed to a path of better collaboration, service sharing, joint procurements like we ultimately arrived at with the Forest Preserve. And we found a better solution through that model that didn't necessarily include consolidation, but it was better, more efficient, collaborative government. The point is, we always have gone where the facts took us, and we have not ventured into a consolidation until we had a strong set of facts and solid research and data laid out for us. I believe that is why we've successfully consolidated 7 units of local government, and we've won national and state recognition and accolades for our efforts. It's a thoughtful process. Consolidation didn't start out as a popular idea. Some here in this body are on record saying that, quote, consolidation doesn't work and doesn't save any money, unquote. Despite our ability to account for millions and millions in savings and recognized by ultimately editorial boards and other objective observers. I welcome everyone to the good government bandwagon of consolidation. I welcome you. However, consolidation won't save any money and will not lead to greater accountability or transparency unless we study and do our homework and we realize what savings can be achieved and we get commitments from the folks that will be carrying out the duties of those offices. So effective office consolidation is a hands-on business. Requires a lot of time and effort. Cross-training, looking for ways to increase efficiency, reducing headcount over time. It's a culture of continuous improvement based on careful, thoughtful planning. So today, when you, as the people's representatives, consider a proposed consolidation question, I advise you to keep foremost in your mind the following. 1, the absolute necessity of a careful study of the duties and responsibilities of both offices in the important manner in which they serve our taxpayers. 2, a good understanding of the mechanism that will ensure that such a consolidation is carried out in a thoughtful manner with adequate transition time so that both offices' duties are completed effectively, promised efficiencies can be achieved, and that taxpayer savings are in fact realized, seeking accountability on these items from the office holder responsible. And finally, this resolution should provide the most transparent and promote accountability and an effective manner to gauge public opinion on the matter, taking the question to the largest number of voters possible seeking that opinion in a general election and not a primary election is so much more effective and responsible so that we know the largest number of voters exposed to the question and can express their opinion on the issue, providing us as decision makers with the best data possible. That's our duty, that's our responsibility, that's our sworn oath. The voters entrust us with governing wisely and to the best of our abilities. The resolution currently before you is simply not the best we can do. Well-intentioned, maybe, but it does not create adequate planning or analysis, and the timing of the question is not optimum. So I advise you to take these matters into consideration before you vote. That concludes my remarks. On the order of chairman's report, we move on to the order of business entitled Public Comment. This is the point in our meeting where we invite folks from the public to come and share their thoughts with us. We do ask that you please abide by our rules and your remarks do not exceed 3 minutes in length. We have a number of folks seeking recognition today. First and foremost, Michael Childress from NAACP.
Good morning, and thank you for having us. As president of the NAACP, I'd like to thank each and every member of the county board for the opportunity to speak. Today we took the Pledge of Allegiance. That flag is nothing more than material and pretty colors. It's what it represents that is the meaning. That flag represents that although we are not perfect, we're striving for a more perfect union. That flag represents liberty and justice for all. That flag represents self-governance, meaning we elect our representation. Who's going to represent we the people? We feel that election integrity is at the very stake of what we consider our society. When we lose trust in our electoral process, we have a complete breakdown of the fabric of our freedoms. It is vital that we fully fund our elections. I would like to thank each member of the county board that shares those beliefs. I have taken the time to develop a scorecard to record your votes. It is my hope today that the vote will be unanimous. We will then hold a strategy session to discuss the good news and the next steps to address the voting machines. We understand the machines did not get in that condition overnight, and the situation will not be rectified overnight. We understand the funding issues, and we also understand that those machines have reached a critical stage. It is our expectation to replace every broken, obsolete machine most expeditiously. Now, I would not come to the board, this esteemed body, with a problem and not be part of the solution. What I propose is that we begin to meet as soon as humanly possible to strategize the most effective ways to replace the old secondhand machines with state-of-the-art voting equipment. This needs to be done. We recognize funding, but we can also strategize on ways to get funding. If we have to go federal, we have to go to our senators, we have to go to our governors. We need to make sure that these things happen, and we need to make sure they happen in a very, very timely manner. The elections are right around the corner. Thank you.
Thank you. Antonia Harlan.
Good morning, Chairman Cronin and members of the board. As a member of the DuPage County NAACP, I am here again to address the issue of voter suppression of our residents via faulty voting equipment. As I stated at the last board meeting, voter suppression is defined as influencing the outcome of an election by discouraging or preventing specific groups of people from voting, including intimidation, disinformation, strict voter ID laws, and I again take the liberty of adding to the list, in the case of DuPage County, archaic, malfunctioning voter machines. As you know, the latter has been in the purview of the county board for several years. Our upcoming 2020 election turnout has been predicted to be one of the largest in recent times. It has also been predicted that we will once again, as in our 2016 election, experience interference from Russia and other possible adversaries who will attempt to influence our votes. And no other time in U.S. history have we faced such a challenge in securing our elections are as free from outside interference. But the upcoming 2020 presidential election being held in DuPage County will bring to our electors a homegrown challenge by way of antiquated and malfunctioning voting machines. It is my understanding that the board will vote to purchase new poll books, which are also in need of replacement. But DuPage County has so far ignored the desperate need for new voting machines, which have not been approved by the board. As you know, these machines actually count our votes. It is the civic duty of this body to take hard, fast measures of corrective actions to assure that this county provides a voting experience to our citizens that is uninhibited and without constraints. As an African American, my people have experienced firsthand that there is no price too high to pay for the right to vote and free elections. The DuPage County Board represents one of the wealthiest counties in Illinois and should include in the budget that much-needed revenue needed to purchase the new machines, because failing to do so would be a failure to uphold your responsibilities to your constituents by which you were elected. Again, I ask that you vote yes on the funding needed to purchase new voting equipment for the voters of DuPage County. And please give this as much attention as you have given to the consolidations of departments. Thank you for your time.
Becky Simon.
Good morning, Becky Simon, League of Women Voters of Naperville. We're all here this morning because there is nothing as productive as in-person meetings. Technology is great, but some things should be discussed face to face. Chairman Cronin, that is why the League of Women Voters would like to meet with you in person. We've been asking now for 18 months. We'd like to meet with you and discuss DuPage County elections and DuPage County government consolidation. We are on the same team, and we want to work with you together. Thank you.
Barbara Lamans.
Hi, Barb Lymans of the Wheaton League of Women Voters and an election judge. And I'm here today to say thank you. Thank you for your commitment to making our democracy work through your commitment of buying new poll books. I was at the Finance Committee this morning, and I was very pleased to see that there was a bipartisan support for this addition to the 2019 budget. We look forward to working with you to gain federal, state dollars to revamp the rest of an aging infrastructure. We hope that collaboration can be achieved, similar to Mr. Hart's grant, that he just received $1 million for opioid treatment. We met with Congressman Caston last week and proposed to him a solution for working together and asked his office to investigate the possibility of federal dollars to help a crisis here in DuPage County. We hope we can work with the Legislative Committee, board members, clerk's office, and we can work together to achieve a modern, updated election process. The League shares your goals and the goals of the clerk to have voter education, voter access, and a smooth election process for all. Thank you. Again, thank you for your vote for the poll books.
Carol Davis.
Good morning. I'm Carol Davis from the Downers Grove League of Women Voters, and I want to thank you all for taking your time to help serve the citizenry of DuPage County. I don't think you hear that enough. Based on what happened in the finance meeting this morning, very hopeful that the e-poll books will be approved for purchase. But I want to take a moment to address a possible issue of communication. Communication is very important. And at the last board meeting, it was mentioned that there wasn't much equipment that was asked for in the budget. And yes, that is correct. The county clerk did not ask for very much equipment, but we have been asking. And we are very thankful for the new e-poll books, but we still have concerns. Number one, the intended process to count the vote by mail ballots and the lack of a functioning ballot sorter. Number 2, the lackluster performance of the touchscreen machines used in early voting and a desire to investigate and invest in ballot-on-demand options like some of our surrounding counties. And 3, recruitment and retention of election judges. But for now, the budget has been made and we'll enter a wait-and-see mode. We will see how things work in the March primary. And with the new e-poll books, things should go better, a whole lot better. But as stated many times before, e-poll books are not the only issue. We sincerely hope there are no major issues in early voting or the March 17th primary. But if there are, we will be back, and we will be working and trying to find ways to find workable solutions. Because first and foremost, we serve the voters, and we fully intend to continue to put our best feet forward, keep positive, continue to register voters and recruit more election judges, and work with our elected officials and county employees to make DuPage a model of election integrity and efficiency. We are not stopping until DuPage's elections run smoothly. So hopefully, after today's meeting, the county clerk can proceed with purchasing the new e-poll books and get started with the onerous task of training well over 1,000 people on new car smell fresh out of the box election equipment. Thank you very much for listening to us and your time.
Dr. Dan Lustig.
Good morning, Chairman and members of the board. I want to thank you again for this opportunity to speak specifically about our proposal for Haymarket, DuPage, and Itasca. Today, I would like to address two main topics relative to our plan: our history and involvement in the West Loop, and the general location proposed for Itasca. Since Monsignor Father McDermott and Dr. James West opened our doors in 1975, Haymarket Center's mission has been to provide evidence-based treatment for anyone seeking to overcome substance use disorders, regardless of their ability to pay. Our West Loop facility is 2 blocks away from major corporations like McDonald's and Google, as well as a long list of renowned restaurants, high-end real estate, school libraries, children's programming, and most recently, a brand new Montessori school that opened up a half a block from Haymarket Center. The facility that we are looking at in Itasca is so keenly important to what we want to bring to DuPage, as it allows us to bring all of our programs into operation to provide comprehensive services to Itasca as well as to DuPage. The facility is located in a business park with ample parking. The facility is set back from Irving Park Road. The park, the library, the community pool are across a major highway from the facility, and many similar behavioral health facilities are even further immersed in communities, including across the street from schools, next to parks, and embedded in residential areas. These facilities have been proven to be good neighbors, and so will we. As we've said before, we are inspired by our mission of helping others, helping people to overcome substance use disorders, and our ultimate goal is saving lives, and we hope to do just that in DuPage County. We continue to see comments as it relates to our contract with a private ambulance service. This is not a transportation service. This is a service that will allow advanced life and safety for our patients who will be at Haymarket Center, DuPage. I am also keenly aware of how polarizing this topic is. But what is more important to DuPage and Itasca than taking care of our children and our families that are impacted by this disease? I want to continue to partner and remove the barriers to care in DuPage, because that is ultimately the goal of what we are trying to propose. This has become a very polarizing issue, and I just want to make note that whether you're Republican, whether you're Democrat, whether you're independent, the key pieces here is that we have to provide treatment on demand, because if you don't, people will continue to die, and that is not what I think any of us want. I think it's evident by how hard DuPage has worked at trying to bring groundbreaking programs to the village, and I need to commend all of you for that. I cannot commend Hope Task Force for what an outstanding grant and impact this will be to the village, so thank you.
Thank you. Lastly, Sal Falbo.
Yeah, regarding consolidation, several people here think it's a great idea. One of you thinks it's such a good idea that we don't need a study. We should just tell the voters that it will work, and then they can make a decision. What we know so far, as a candidate, the clerk said that she could step in day one, take over that office in the election commission, and then almost immediately has to hold off on the election commission. She wasn't ready. All that needed to be done was leave it alone till you learn what was happening and make some changes. One change, as I mentioned 2 weeks ago, instead of encouraging committeemen to take a walk list, help eliminate the dead wood on the list, they now get to come in, request one, sign an affidavit, and they'll get it later. Instead of the 3-page packet that you needed to file as a precinct committeeman that could be given to the various parties, keep things consistent. Now you get to go online and request it. When you do that, you get 9 pages. 5 have absolutely nothing to do with being a precinct committeeman. The 6th one, it primarily tells you how to file to be a ward committeeman and tells you to file in Cook County. I'm not sure where that came from, unless somebody looked to the east to get advice. Election judges, yeah, they need a raise. That's a tough job. I think the $300,000 that was to be saved in the merger should probably be more than enough to cover that. Further to election judges, the clerk would like 5,600 judges. We have 267 polling places, 9 early polling places. That comes out to over 20 judges per polling place. Where would you put them? Okay, even if you eliminate the early voter judges that wouldn't work every day, assume that none of them want to work election day, you're still up in the high teens. You don't have enough room in the polling places for 17 or 18 judges. It's just that simple. So I mean, it looks to me like somebody's just pulling numbers out of the air. So I think if there's going to be a study to see if consolidation makes sense, you also then have to take a look at the consolidation that's already taken place. How well is that working? And factor that into it. So thank you.
Okay, that concludes our public comment item on our agenda. We move to the item entitled consent. There's been a motion and a second. Madam Clerk, please call the roll.
Zay. Chaplin. Covert. Desart. DeCiani. Eckhoff. Elliott. Hart. Healy. Krajewski. Larson. Noonan. Ozog. Bachowski. Renahan. Rutledge. Selman. Tornatori. 16.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. On the order of County Board, Mr. James Zay.
Mr. Chairman, just one item today. Move on CBR 36619, resolution present a public question via countywide referendum to abolish the office of DuPage County Recorder of Deeds.
Okay, there's a motion and a second. Seeking is discussion. A number of people seeking recognition. Mr. Healy, please.
I just have a couple of questions for the sponsors on this, and I don't mean to be critical because I'm in favor of this. It was 10 years ago, as I am in favor of reducing the size of the county board, as many of the people in the audience and the press know. But this resolution calls for having this in the primary, when we know, and we just heard today, that the highest turnout in recent history is expected in the November election. So I'm curious as to why we're disenfranchising roughly 25% of the people in DuPage County by having it in the primary and making this a political issue, because you then have to say, am I going to be a Democrat, am I going to be a Republican? You can't take the nonpartisan ballot, which would have it on it, but in the past, the highest it's ever been taken is 6,000 people. 150,000 people will not vote on this. because of the fact that it's held in the primary. Whereas if we held it in the general, you could do everything the exact same, but you just would have a much larger turnout. And having been a member of the Naperville Board of Directors of the League of Women Voters and everybody else, it's always been my position that we're trying to get the most people to come out and talk about these things as humanly possible. I'd like to take the partisan politics out of this and move it into a general election where these decisions are not made in the back room and then brought forward and thrown in a referendum, you know, or thrown in front of us in this thing right here, but we get public input. I think what we really need to have is, I mean, are you bringing this to be voted on today or to send it to a committee to talk about so that we can have it on the agenda? Because I mean, I totally am in favor of it. I'm in favor of having it, but I'm in favor of having it in the general election and not in the primary election where it becomes a partisan issue and not a open issue for everybody. Also, I've always been in favor of having committees talk about these things. In fact, I've usually made fun of the fact that I always want to have a committee talk about things because I like having this input. I don't like disenfranchising the voters and not letting them comment on these things. I like them having comment on it during these committee meetings and being able to talk about it. Because it sounds like we're making the decision, we are making the decision right off the bat with this resolution that you have in front of us that A, it's going to be held in the primary, therefore we're disenfranchising 25% of the voters, and B, we're going to be having this where it takes effect in, I think it's December, it would take effect December 1st, 2020. Now, I'm not smart enough to know whether it should take effect December 1st, 2020, December 1st, 2022, or 2024. I don't think I'd ever be in favor of 2024. But once again, have we talked to the people who are in charge of these things? Have we talked to the clerk? Have we, more importantly, talked to the recorder and found out what's needed to do this? And, you know, whether this is the best time period. So we're already making these decisions in this resolution you have in front of us without really sitting down and talking it through and having somebody look at what's needed to do this. I'm in favor of this, Liz. I'll even co-sponsor the damn thing with you once we get it out of a committee. You know, but can we send it to a committee and have them take a look at it?
Okay.
Yeah.
We do have member to
I would
start
yield for a
seeking
question, Mr.
recognition.
Chairman.
Okay, so with leave of the body, because you've posed a question to a fellow member and please.
Thank you, Chairman Cronin. So just a couple of things. With regards to having it on committee, I did address Chairman Larson of the Finance Committee last week at Finance, and I asked if we should put this question on the Finance Committee agenda, and you said that the county board would be fine, it didn't need to go to Finance. And I asked you right at the diocese up here. So, we can bring it back to Finance if you want and do that way, that's fine, because I did ask that procedure. Yeah. Secondly, why now and why March? Okay, we now know that our recorder is retiring, so he will not be seeking re-election. If we put the question on the ballot for the March primary, then we can make a smooth transition in November of 2020 with that office. If we wait until December to put the question on the ballot, that would be 4 more years we have to have a recorder because we cannot remove a recorder from elected office.
Yes, you can. I'm sorry, Mr. Chairman, I'm going to just,
Okay,
because
so
you're
let's-
not stating
let's
your
let-
facts.
Wait, I listened
Member
to you without
Chaplin.
interrupting.
Go ahead.
Please,
Go ahead.
please. And you know what, I'm just gonna I'm really just getting tired of this whole thing here. I have served, you wanna talk about political here. This board has been nothing but political. And this politicalness goes back to my time on the Water Commission, when I had some of you members that tell people how things are and how it is. And you know what? You were wrong then, and you're probably going to be wrong now. So let me finish my words, and I am tired of the condescending tone of all of you. First of all, the woman on this board, we know what we're talking about. Okay, so let's just get that down. Okay, so if we wait until December, it's 4 years that we have to wait. From my understanding, maybe the state's attorney can weigh in on that. But also, if we wait 4 years, We're going to transition a new clerk, then we're going to transition in 2020, and then we're going to transition again in 2024 when we do the merger. Secondly, it's going to cost us $800,000 in salaries and benefits of that recorder's office. This isn't really about consolidating. To me, this is about eliminating an elected position like all the other counties, many of the other counties in the state have done. All of these other counties have found ways to manage to do this. McHenry County put their question on the ballot in the primary. Maybe this will bring more voters out to the primary to get them energized to come out and vote in the primary. And I'll tell you what, I think that this is going to be a huge primary turnout with the primaries that we're going to have for our presidential election. My point is about being fiscally responsible to the people of DuPage County. All these other counties have managed to find ways to get rid of the recorder's office, and it shouldn't be that difficult. We have a very thorough study done by Winnebago County. Winnebago County's, not much has changed from 2017 to now with this study. So if you want to do a study, my question would be, what other information are you looking for in that study? And do you think that this study is going to say that all the other counties in the state should eliminate the recorder except DuPage County? Do we really think that that's going to be what this study is going to show? The Winnebago study gives us everything we need. It gives us the steps to merge these two offices. So my point is, if we do it in the primary, the people that ran for the recorder in the primary will know one way or another if they will have an office in 2020. If the voters vote to eliminate that office in March, they don't run for it in November. We have 9 months to work with the clerk and the recorder's office to eliminate that one position and have a new head of that take over. We're not talking right now about moving any jobs. We're just talking about eliminating the office of the recorder. So, there wasn't this concern. When our clerk did have concerns about the merger, I remember all the pushback. All we're doing is eliminating 3 commissioners and giving that job to one individual. Where all we're doing right now is eliminating the recorder's office and giving that job to one individual. So we can make this as difficult as we want. We have many studies out there. The Winnebago study is an excellent study. And, last year at this time, we have people saying that the recorder's office is ripe. They do a fine job. It's nothing personal. But really, the whole notion of a recorder's office harkens back to a bygone era. That is true. Let's move on and let's get going with all these other counties. Like I said, this doesn't have to be that difficult. And who better to decide? Are we saying that our voters aren't intelligent enough to decide if they want to have a recorder? That we have to do a study first to tell them that it's okay? Do we not have faith in our voters that they can make a decision? Let's leave it to the voters. Let's let them decide, and let's let them decide in March so we don't waste another $800,000 on salaries and benefits for an office that will go away. So I hope that answers your question.
Actually, it didn't, but I'm continuing on my discussions earlier.
I want to call on member to start.
Would it change your, and again, all I'm looking to do is just put.
Well, let him finish his remarks, and then I want to call on you next, please.
You actually, whatever date you put in the referendum is the date that it happens. If you put in, I'm sorry, I've already asked for an opinion from the state's attorney's office on this. I asked it for him for about 4 months ago when I started moving forward on this issue. If you put on the date of 2020, December 1st, and you had it in the November election, it would take effect December 1st, 2020. If you put on that it was going to take the minute that the election results were certified, then the present recorder would actually be out of office on that day. If you put 2022, I agree that the Winnebago thing was very good. They also left 2 years in which to do the transfer of it, which again is my only difference between you and me right now in this thing is I would have it in November of 2020 to allow everybody to not disenfranchise a lot of voters, to literally leave it up to the voters to make this decision, when 150,000 plus more voters are going to be coming out. Not to make these decisions in the back room, but to do it in the air of light. To let everybody make these decisions, and to then take the time. So my other question would be, I would also make this take place in 2022, based upon what Winnebago did and what all the other counties did. I think 4 years is way too long, but I think 2 years is fine. So I would hope that you would send this to a committee to do that quick review of those things, verify with the state's attorney that this takes place, whatever date you put into the resolution, or to the referendum to the voters, and just go forward it then. And again, I'll be your second on the motion to make this thing go forward. But I think we need to understand all of the issues that are in front of us. And as we heard today, this is going to be the biggest presidential election ever. Why wouldn't we disenfranchise our voters?
Further discussion, Member Desart.
Thank you, Chairman. Disagreement is the hallmark of democracy, so I appreciate all the comments here today. I do take exception with this board continually talking partisan politics. The consolidation of the recorder's office and the clerk's office is not partisan politics. It's a timing issue. As Liz said, and I'm not going to regurgitate what she said, but it's merely a timing issue. The recorder is retiring. The ACT initiative is not a partisan issue. It's just what this board has adopted. So, number one, we're not leaders of this consolidation. In fact, we're stragglers in this consolidation, with 87 other counties out of 102 counties already having combined these two offices. We're not leaders. We're stragglers. We're coming in at the tail end of this. Number two, as I said, 87 out of 102 counties have merged these offices before us. We know we'll save almost $1 million if we allow this merger to happen. Number four, voters expect us to govern wisely. They also expect us to not waste their tax dollars on a study, on a $130,000 beautification project for the campus. They expect us to not waste their money. Now, if this study was so important, why am I reading on this date, October 8th, 2018, the chairman said in the Daily Herald, the recorder's office is right. They do a fine job. It's nothing personal, but really, the whole notion of a recorder's office harkens back to a bygone era. That was a year ago. If this study was so important, why are we talking about this a year later? Why wasn't the study already in the history books? In August of 2018, again, the chairman said, after the consolidation of the Election Commission becomes official early next year, we will continue our examinations of all offices and all departments, including but not limited to the recorder's office. Again, why are we talking about a study right now? So I rise to ask this of our parliamentarian, Connor McCarthy. My question is this, there's been a motion and a second, how do I bifurcate the vote? I'm looking at the resolution. I'd like to bifurcate the vote. I'd like to take out paragraph 8 regarding the feasibility study and vote on the issues separately. Number one, consolidation of the recorder's office. And the second vote would be if we need a study, because I believe that we do not. I believe it's a waste of taxpayers' dollars. Thank you. I'll wait to listen.
To bifurcate on two different forms of the resolution. Am I understanding your question correctly? Yes. Well, then I think the appropriate way to do that would be to make an amendment and create two different resolutions to vote on. That would be the first way to do that.
But there's already a motion and a second on the table.
Yes, you can amend at any time.
I would like to make an amendment to the motion on the table to create two different votes, one for the resolution as it stands and one for the resolution without the feasibility study, because I believe that that work has already been done by 87 other Illinois counties.
So,
Second?
Second, yes.
Procedurally, you take the amendment first, since one of them is as it stands, then there's an amendment. So the amendment will get taken first. What is the amendment? I would. Pardon me?
I'm not sure what the amendment is that's being proposed.
Yeah, you'd have to
The
explain.
amendment being proposed is to take out paragraph 8, the one that describes the feasibility study. Because I'm all for consolidation, but I believe we don't need a feasibility study to waste taxpayer dollars on that. because
That in the proposal that's currently, that is the one that you presented.
this is on, this is what's on
Okay,
the
so
agenda.
what you presented on the floor is before us. You're referring to an amendment and you want to amend an amendment, is that? what
Yeah, I do.
Okay.
Based on the
Well-
resolution that was in your board packet.
The amendment I think you're speaking to. So right now, the vote that's on the floor is the proposal that Member Chaplin presented that does not include the paragraph. So you're asking to amend something that's not there yet.
Our parliamentarian said that I can amend it at any time, even on the floor. So I'm amending. She didn't make the amendment change.
Okay, but we wouldn't understand what you're amending. You're amending the resolution that's on the table right now? The amendment, the resolution that's on the table right now.
Does not contain the paragraph you're asking me to.
Is that correct?
Well, I'm seeking advice from our parliamentarian. We want to remove paragraph 8 from the
Paragraph
resolution.
8 from the resolution, and that's the resolution that was in the board packet as written by Member Chaplin.
And, yes, exactly. She did not write this resolution.
That resolution is not before. It has not been proposed.
Okay. Well, I do have an order here, people seeking recognition to discuss the item that's on the agenda on right now. You have Member Larson, followed by Member Salmon, followed by Member Pachowski, followed by Member Ozog, followed by Member Renahan. So do you want to go to discussion, or do you want to take up the matter of the amendment right now?
Yes, that was the question for my parliamentarian.
Okay.
Our parliamentarian.
Okay, so,
If she wants to amend it to remove paragraph 8.
okay, about the feasibility study, so you don't want a feasibility, okay, so there's a motion to amend the resolution that's on the table right now, and in that resolution, there is a paragraph that you find objectionable, and that's the resolution that's on the table right now, and the objection you have is it calls for a feasibility study.
Correct. And there was
Okay.
a second already.
Okay, and there was a motion and a second. So, Mr. Zay, seeking recognition.
Question on the amendment, Member Desart. Did you not bring this resolution forward to us?
No, sir. No. Maybe we can ask Joan Olson, who wrote this resolution? Where did this come
All
from?
right, let's point of order. Let's address our remarks to members of the board or the parliament or
He asked
our
me.
I just
council.
asked where, I mean,
He asked me.
you got the 6 signatures, you brought this forward, I would assume this is,
That's not the same resolution I brought forward.
Okay,
Yeah, that, you know,
then I'm just,
I don't believe that you brought forward.
okay, well, let's address the resolution that you brought forward.
It might have been with the, because I just copied it from McHenry County.
well,
Wait a minute, let's just let,
well, I mean, my question is, you brought this resolution
I just am
forward.
trying to make
I
sure,
mean,
let's
that's-
establish what it is that Member Chaplin has brought before the board. She sought 6 signatures to get this on the agenda. Let's make sure that we're all in agreement about what her intent was to have us consider which resolution. So does the resolution that you put forth include the paragraph regarding feasibility study? It's okay if it does. Let's just get to the facts. Sure.
Possible for us to the general discussion and the way this
Well,
portion of the discussion
I
is.
think given the fact that they want to amend, yeah, let's just try to address it in an orderly.
On the amendment.
Just a second, please.
Just wait, we're waiting.
Let's extend the courtesy to Member Chaplin.
Thank you, I appreciate it. No, mine does not include that paragraph.
Do you have a copy of some sort of I mean, how do we, I want to address the resolution that you submitted, and we're prepared for that.
Yeah, this is not the same resolution.
Oh, we want to address your resolution. Right. So we want to address your resolution. So do you have a copy of your resolution before us, please?
Apparently, none of us do, Chairman, just because.
Well, we can remedy that. We can remedy that.
That's not the same, that's it's not.
All right. Okay, why don't we take a brief moment recess here? You can take a deep breath, go get a cup of coffee. We'll reconvene in a moment. We'll get the item that Member Chaplin intended to have come before the body, and then we will reconvene in a moment. Please stand at ease. Okie dokie. Call the meeting back to order, please. Okay, we've had a good collaborative effort to come to some resolution here procedurally, and I'm pleased to call on Member Desart regarding her motion. Stood and sought recognition and moved to bifurcate, seeking a vote on both different versions of this resolution. Member Desart.
I think we've come to a great conclusion. We'll bring this up in 2 weeks, so I withdraw my motion to bifurcate the vote.
Okay, thank you, Member Desart. Member Okay, so with the understanding that we're going to address this matter in a timely fashion, we're going to follow all the requirements that the rules require, and that we will have this. Yes.
The original resolution is not. We did discuss with a couple of people, not in violation of the Opens Meetings Act, we limited the number of people discussing, that I'm happy to.
No, wait a minute. Excuse me. Point of order. Member Desart, her motion to.
Right,
so
the
that's
original
off the
motion is
table.
still on.
Now we're back to the original resolution that Member Chaplin submitted. There was apparently some sort of confusion where the amended version was inadvertently circulated as her resolution. We identified that issue. We are now engaged in corrective action. She has withdrawn her resolution to be taken up again in 2 weeks. We will refer it to Finance Committee. Is that my
That's what I was going to clarify, Mr.
Okay.
Chairman. Can I just
Okay.
speak since I got.
Okay, forgive me, please.
Hang on.
Please.
Everybody hang on
Member
one second.
Larson, please proceed.
We have withdrawn the motion to amend the original motion, the propositions on the floor. I understand based upon discussions with Member Chaplin that will be withdrawn so we can clean this up procedurally. I have invited, because when we discussed this and I wanted clarity's sake on the issue of when we were going to discuss this, I did tell Member Chaplin this is an issue that's ultimately before the county board, which is what we discussed a couple of weeks ago, but I am happy on behalf of the Finance Committee to invite discussion on the issue of the consolidation of the offices
up to them.
at the next Finance Committee meeting, and then we will re-propose a cleaner proposal regarding this after Member Chaplin withdraws the motion.
I think the question was put to Member Chaplin. Mr. Zay.
Yes,
your
Mr. Chairman,
pleasure.
I will move, as it was under county board, I will move to withdraw CBR 36619.
Okay.
No, this.
Okay, so there's a second moved by Member Zay, seconded by Member Chaplin. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. The ayes have it. Okay. Okay, fair enough. That concludes our report on the order of county board. No? We have more. Please, Mr. Zay.
I'm done.
You're done? Okey-dokey. I move to the order of business. And finance, my agenda is out of order here. Everything's a little discombobulated this morning. Member Larson on the order of finance.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I would move to combine agendas A through D under Finance.
All those in favor say aye. Opposed, nay. The ayes have it. The items are combined. Please proceed.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I would then move approval of the following items, which are all acceptance and appropriations. FAR 35319 for the LIHEAP in the amount of, or low-income kit energy, I'm sorry, in the amount of $20,000.
Finance.
35419, acceptance and appropriation of LIHEAP in the amount of $1,747,629. FIR 35819, the Veterans Affairs Scratch-Off Lottery Grant in the amount of $80,000. And FIR 36019, the Illinois Emergency Management Performance Grant in the amount of $223,380.85.
Second. It's been a motion and a second. Madam Clerk, please call the roll.
Cronin. Ozark. Bachowski. Renahan. Rutledge. Selman. Tortori. Zay. Chaplin. Covert. Desart. DeCiani. Eckhoff. Elliott. Hart. Healy. Krajewski. 17.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. Mr. Larson.
Thank you, Chairman. I would move approval of FIR 36419, budget transfers for various companies, for various funds and departments. I'm sorry.
Leave is granted. Mr. Larson.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Move approval of FIR 36519, placing names on payroll.
Leave is granted. Mr. Larson.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Move approval of FIP 28119, approval of a contract purchase order between the County of DuPage and Bond Dixon and Associates in the amount of not to exceed $100,000.
Leave is granted. Mr. Larson.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Move approval of FIP 28219, approval of a contract purchase order between the County of DuPage and Rock Fusco and Connolly in the amount not to exceed $50,000.
Leave is granted. Mr. Larson.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Finally, move approval of FIP 28319, approval of a contract purchase order between the County of DuPage and Noink LLC in the amount of $2,044,000, not to exceed.
There's been a motion, well, in a second, and there's member Covert seeking recognition.
Is this for item H or I?
That's item I.
Item I, yeah, I did have a question.
Yes, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Sorry, I have a hurt foot, so I'm balancing on one leg.
Somebody's birthday today.
Happy birthday.
Thank you. Just a couple of questions for clarification for Noink LLC. I was looking this company up online, and there was a negative review. As a consumer, I always look for reviews on products, and I just had a couple of concerns. There was an article by Philadelphia Inquirer where the city of Philadelphia had contracted with this particular company, Noink, for e-poll books, and they said that they experienced several problems with it, which says the observed problems included failures to properly connect to voting machine printers and inadequate election night reporting. We believe the city should not use this electronic poll book system in an election unless there is complete confidence that it will perform reliably. I am all for, new election equipment. Obviously, we want to have good elections, but I don't want to sacrifice quality for convenience. I want to get this clarified before I vote on it. This negative review that was online with the Philadelphia Inquirer, and then also NPR reported a lot of cybersecurity issues with e-poll books. So I guess my question is, how would this company respond to this? And second, has this equipment been tested? Are we going to get an opportunity to test these e-poll books before Election Day? Because I don't want to be in a position where it's the night before election, we're testing it out, and now we have disastrous election results.
Okay, that's a great question. Member Chaplin is seeking recognition.
Thank you, Chairman Cronin. So how many bad reviews were there? Did you say, how many bad reviews did you find? One, did you say? One. So how many, I just would be curious how many providers this company serves, and if there's, one bad review out there, if there's hundreds of bad reviews out there.
Okay, so Member Chaplin, in accordance with our rules, would you like us to call on Mr. Johnson to shed some light on this? Mr. Johnson, please.
Yeah, here of the report that Member Covert referenced, our understanding is actually the problem was not with the e-poll book vendor in that case. It was with the election system. So I don't know if the report that you read was putting the blame on them, but our understanding is the issue in that case was not the e-poll book itself. Our staff did very thoroughly vet this company in terms of their references with other counties, in terms of researching them online, and we did not find any reason to doubt the quality or the reliability of their product.
Because I've also researched 10X, which was a competitor, and I didn't find zero negative reviews about 10X. And in this article, it says, the city observes several problems with No Ink's poll book system.
Right, again, I can't speak to that article. I can speak to our understanding of what the issue was in that situation, and, you know, we're happy to discuss it with you further and, you know, bring up those specifics. But, you know, our review team looked at this very carefully and have a high degree of confidence in this vendor.
Okay, I didn't have time last night. I would have called the commissioners at Philadelphia and just asked them myself, but I didn't have time. I just want to make sure that, you know, we are making the right decision for, because it's a lot of money too, and I represent District 5, I represent DuPage County, and I want to make sure that we do it right and we're successful at it, so.
Further discussion, Mr. Healy.
So did you talk to Philadelphia?
I did not personally to step up and elaborate on it a little more, but we are aware of this issue or this report, and well, you want to?
For the record, please state your name.
I'm Scott McKay. I'm the Director of Elections. I just wanted to briefly touch base because I don't want to talk on behalf of the vendor who is part of this other portion of it, but it was a printer issue that was through the tabulation system, which I can provide you guys a report if that's something that you would be interested, but it was not, technically it was not the No Ink product, it was through the tabulation printer, which was not No Ink.
So Philadelphia told you that?
No, I did not call Philadelphia. I spoke to No Ink directly, their director of sales.
Further discussion, Member Covert.
I'd like more information about this before I approve such a large purchase. I want to be comforted in the fact that these e-poll books will work. That's what I need to know. Because if I approve this today and something happens before election, my district is going to blame me. They're going to say, why did you vote on something that was faulty? And I'm not going to take that responsibility.
Further discussion, anyone else seeking recognition? So, yes, Mr. Larson.
Just a couple of points, and perhaps the election office can address this. I think this is an important concern that's raised. Obviously, this is part of our commitment, the commitment that we made and discussed to get new equipment for the clerk's office so that we can run a good, clean election. We want to make sure, of course, that equipment works properly. I don't think the issue is so much the number of complaints that there may be, but the substance of them and whether the substance has or has not been verified. I think there is a certain degree of concern if it's the vendor telling us it's not a problem, because we heard that from other vendors and it turned out to be a problem. I would ask the clerk's office for clarity on two issues. One, is there a process in place so that these can be verified as fully and properly functional in advance of the election so that we are assured that there isn't a problem and that we can get out of this contract and get somebody else in if there is a problem? And second of all, if it were to be tabled for 2 weeks so that we can gather this information, if that proves necessary, would that still leave you sufficient time to accomplish what you want to accomplish?
Member.
Election integrity.
I just wanted to get answers to the questions I asked.
Okay, forgive me. Go ahead.
So we're timeline of implementing this and getting the judges trained. You know, we were planning on starting with that tomorrow, on the assumption that, you know, this was passed, and, you know, we'd be working with the vendor. You know, they have a project manager who's going to be set up and working with us. So, you know, the timeline was already kind of tight to get all this done for the March primary. So yes, we were planning on moving forward immediately. Again, you know, we've been researching this vendor thoroughly for, you know, at least 6 months in terms of our research of all the different vendors who are out there on the market. This particular issue had not risen to a high level of concern for us. Obviously, if this had been, you know, brought to our attention before the meeting, you know, I could have gotten you a little more detailed information about it. In the entire review we did, this did not stand out, you know, as a particular area of concern. So, you know, we can get you whatever information you need, but, you know, we had a team of people thoroughly review this, look at, you know, all the different products on the market, and this, we were aware of this, but in our research of it and, you know, our staff's understanding of the different systems involved, it did not cause particular concern for our
You
election
didn't
staff.
talk to the election authority, the city of Philadelphia.
We did not, and my sense is the assessment of our staff in terms of their knowledge of the different systems involved and that, the explanation they received was sufficient to, put that aside and, not
Further discussion,
be a
member
major issue.
Dessart.
Thank you.
Integrity is key to our democracy, and I think it's one of the most important things we here at the county do, is protecting our election process. I reached out to Jean on Sunday, and I spoke to her about this particular ebook purchase, and she was excited about this company and totally into this company. Look at Jean. Does she look like she gets excited about that much? She was excited about this company. So I will be voting yes because I believe in Jean. We as a county elected Jean, and so now we have to trust her decision-making when it comes to the ebook purchase. Thank you.
Further discussion, member Chaplin.
I'm just wondering if any county board members here have visited any other election vendors.
Visited vendors?
Yeah, went on tours of any other people that do this type of business. I'm just curious.
I did.
Okay.
I've looked into
Thank you.
other election companies.
Further discussion, Mr. Eckhoff, followed by Mr. Zay.
I say the question for staff, was procurement involved in any of this decision-making?
We've been working with procurement in terms of developing the RFP, reviewing the responses. They can speak to their involvement, but yes, procurement we've been working very closely with them throughout the entire process.
That's reassuring.
So I guess I would like to hear what procurement has to say about it.
Okay, Mr. Procurement.
I didn't know if he was the one or not.
We went through a standard process for this RFP, and we did review the reference to the offered, and I'm not sure if the system is identical. When we say a system, it does involve other equipment and other people's setup. So I'm not sure. They do have a process that will allow them to test the system fully before it goes.
Further discussion, member Ozog, followed by member Mr. Pachowski. Sorry, Mr. Zay.
Okay, I'm not sure what the procedure is for this, but I am interested that Member Covert has visited other election vendors and what time frame that was and why you would feel that was of a particular duty that you had when this appears to have been something that would have been through the clerk in conjunction with the procurement, RFP, et cetera.
I can respond to that.
Okay.
Please do.
Yes, yes.
Will the witness please answer the question?
Thank you, yes. Actually, before the RFP period, I had received an email from a company called Platinum Technologies, and they had reached out to me as a board member, introducing themselves and explaining their election equipment. They had asked Madam Clerk to also visit them, and I had also called Madam Clerk as well to discuss this company with her directly before the RFP period, so very well within the ethical time limit. I'm not sure, Madam Clerk is also a friend of mine, so this is not about friendship and all of that, and Jean knows perfectly well my intentions. And I've always supported Madam Clerk, from the beginning of the year. So this is not something personal, or it's not a personal attack, but, I am a representative of DuPage County and my district, so I have to be thorough. For some reason, I guess it didn't work out with Madam Clerk visiting Platinum Technologies. I went there myself to see how the election equipment worked. I was very impressed with the technology. I brought it back to Madam Clerk, and it just didn't really move forward from there. So I didn't push it, and I dropped the issue, and I didn't have any contact with Platinum Technologies after that, especially going into an RFP period. But I was very impressed with their equipment. And I also learned a lot about where these voting machines were manufactured, how many there are in Illinois. There's 3 major ones. One of them are the Liberty system we had before that was manufactured in a foreign country, not in America. Platinum was manufactured here. So there are a lot of information, and it's a little too late right now at this point, but yeah, I did. That's my response.
I did some research. Okay, further discussion on the matter, member Pachowski.
Chairman, last time we had a problem with our election, it was the Ender card. And I remember we were having an issue after that, and the election commission came in, and it was Pete DeCiani who said, well, the thickness of the card was thick, and they didn't test it. And I'm all for if this is what the clerk wants. I assume, because we've had some very bad experiences with our election process, that all of this stuff will be tested and it'll work perfectly. Because I don't want to have any elections that aren't perfect. And at 10 o'clock at night on election night, we shouldn't be hearing on television that DuPage County has yet to come in and we've had problems. So, you know, we have to do this, and as long as this stuff's tested, and if the clerk is happy with it, then it's her responsibility. And I'm hoping it's tested, because the last time the Board of Election could have easily tested that ender card, and we wouldn't have had people in line until midnight with machines with copies that couldn't be printed out because the cardboard piece to end it was too thick. Thank you.
Further discussion, Mr. Zay, followed by Member Ozog.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. You know, I am confident that the clerk has done her due diligence on this. Her staff seems to be aware of the problems that happen in Philadelphia. They've been working on this for a while. To delay it 2 weeks, I think, would be, you know, we've been talking about this for a while. We do have elections coming. 2 weeks doesn't seem like a lot, but 2 weeks in election and training people is a lot to, I think, to them. And I'm confident that they're going to have more conversations with this vendor about if there are any issues, and I think they'll be worked out. And I'm going to support this motion today.
Further discussion, Member Ozog.
Which, in that same vein, I'd like to ask Mr. Johnson, is there at this point specific plans for testing? I'd like to assume that was part of your procurement, that you're going to have these and will be tested, et cetera.
Yes, there's an entire implementation plan that includes training, testing, and again, just I mean, we're looking up the reports on this and communicating with the vendor right now. We've looked into all of the issues related to the different products we're looking at. This did not rise to an issue of particular concern in terms of our staff who have technical expertise in the area. Looked at the explanations that were provided, did the research. Had this been brought to us, before the floor of the meeting, I could have had, the information in front of you right now to explain why that wasn't an area of particular concern. I can just say that in our staff's vetting of this, we're aware of the story, discussed it with the vendor. Our staff, looked into it, made the recommendations. We looked at the totality of everything this vendor's experience throughout the country, the presentation they gave us, the specs of their equipment, our interaction with their staff. They were very, probably of all the vendors we talked to, the most forthcoming and, the most cooperative in terms of, transparency and reassuring us of the quality of their product. So we just do not have any concerns on moving forward with this purchase at this point.
Okay, fair enough. Further discussion in order. People were seeking recognition. Mr. Krajewski, followed by Member Covert.
Just real quick, one last thing. I'm going to support this resolution, but I would just ask the clerk's office, can you just call Philadelphia and just let us know what they say sometime before next 2 weeks or whatever. Just let us know.
And I presume the terms of the contract, if there is some issue with performance in the testing, there's some provision that allows you an out.
Again, all the contracts were worked with the finance department, the standard language.
Doesn't do any good to test it and see if it works if you already got a contract.
If you come back and you get the ink, which you guys thought it was an ink issue or whatever, just let us know. That
sure, well, I'm happy to bring the explanation to the board.
Again, thank you. Just
everybody does that.
What Philadelphia said about it. Thank you.
Just a little question. Member.
Exactly my question. Is there a provision in the contract that allows us to cancel the contract if it doesn't work? I mean, I'm happy to vote for it. I just want to make sure there's an out.
Is there an out,
That's
Jim?
all.
Yeah. Okay, there's always an out.
Okay.
We want to make sure we got an out. Further discussion, someone seeking, Ms. Renahan, or Member Renahan, forgive me.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'm just wondering, the thing that seems highly unusual to me is a board member being lobbied for possible, contracting.
Oh, come on.
No, I mean, is this something that we're supposed to report to someone, or is there something what is the procedure for that? I find it kind of highly unusual that we're coming to vote and then we're hearing about some third-party purveyor when, I've been basically educated to trust staff and trust all the hard work they do in procurement, and I'm getting there. And, but, I'm just wondering, how does that work? Yeah. It's concerning. It's concerning. Well, I mean, you can laugh, but it is concerning.
I'm not laughing. I just think that there are take responsibility and they can do research and they can look in. We're always willing to engage with good, talented people, no matter where they are and where they come from, and if they're local and if they're people. I mean, I think as long as you adhere to the rules and it's not during a period of time that would be inappropriate, people in on issues, you know, through their life experiences. People might have family businesses that lead them to have a special knowledge about things in their neighborhood. I mean, there's all sorts of different ways that you bring those experiences to the boardroom, and you're a better board member because of it. Member Ozog.
To follow up on Member Renahan's comments just now, I think that we do need to be far more transparent if a vendor who might have an interest in a $2 million contract contacts us, and it's really not under our purview. The clerk is a separately elected office, and this is coming from the clerk's office. They have done their homework, et cetera. So I think this is something going forward that it would be important for us to disclose if we are contacted by a vendor really outside of our purview.
I think she disclosed it today, right
Well,
out in the
not,
open for
I
everybody.
had to request if she had
Member
met
Healy,
with someone.
please, followed by Member Dessart.
Madam Clerk, Commissioner Daley from Philadelphia is going to call you later.
There you go. Look at that. Through NACO, I bet. Member Dessart.
I'd like to call the vote.
Okay, well, Mr. Larson is.
Just to close as the, and, look, everybody has a right to discuss with outside sources, and this has been something that's been done forever. It's a way of gathering information. Certainly, if there was a concern that a board member was having a discussion and then got a campaign donation or voted on the issue based upon some special relationship, that's one thing. But gathering information, that's part of what we do. When I was chairman of Health and Human Services, there were many companies that came to me and asked me about privatization of the DuPage Care Center. I certainly told them all no, but we should never be afraid of information, and I hope that we never are. And I don't think we should assume the worst about our fellow board members when they're trying to gather that information. That being said, I appreciate the work of the clerk's staff in vetting this. I think these are valid questions and concerns, but we've been told that the staff has thoroughly vetted these issues. We all want to maintain our commitment to get this equipment in the hands of the clerk and their staff so that they can begin the process of training the election judges so that we can have as clean an election as possible, and I'll be supporting the resolution.
Okay, that's the close. There's been a motion and a second on this resolution for the e-poll books. Madam Clerk, please call the roll.
Ozog. Bachowski. Renahan. Rutledge. Selman. Tornatore. Zay. Chaplin. Covert. Dessart. DeCiani. Eckhoff. Elliott. Hart. Healy. Krajewski. 17.
Thank you very much. The resolution is adopted. Thank you, Mr. Larson. Thank you all. Moving on to the order of development, Mr. Sam Tornatore.
Thank you, Chairman. First, thank you to Vice Chairman of Development, Liz Chaplin, for covering for me last week while I was otherwise engaged in Health Department business. Moving on, I would move approval of DCO 5319, Ordinance C 1930. This is a zoning hearing officer's recommendation to approve a conditional use for an existing shed.
It's been a motion and a second. Madam Clerk, please call the roll.
Tornatore.
Aye.
Zay. Chaplin. Covert. Dessart. DeCiani. Eckhoff. Elliott. Hart. Healy. Krajewski. Larson. Noonan. Ozog. Bachowski. Renahan. Rutledge. Selman. 17.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. Mr. Tornatore.
Mr. Chairman, to move approval of DCO 5419, Ordinance C 1942, a zoning hearing officer's approval of a conditional use.
A motion and a second. Request for leave. Leave is granted. Mr. Tornatore.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Move approval of DCO 55-19, Ordinance C 1948, a zoning hearing officer's approval of a variation to increase square footage.
Leave is granted.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Finally, I move approval of DCO 5619, Ordinance C 1949, a zoning hearing officer's approval of a conditional use to reduce a side yard setback.
Been a motion and a second. Request for leave. Leave is granted. Thank you, Mr. Tornatore. A fine report. On to the order of environmental. Member Chaplin.
Thank you, Chairman Cronin. quick committee update. On September 27th, Board Member Julie Renahan, Kay McKean from Scarce, and myself presented the Earth Flag to Village of Westmont. They've done a great job out there with their environmental initiatives. As I mentioned earlier, this year we, through our strategic plan, adopted inclusion and diversity as a pillar of our strategic plan. And I'm pleased to let the board know that we did have Mr. Mike Childress from the NAACP attend our October 1st meeting. And the DuPage Environmental Division and Committee, along with Scarce, is going to be assisting the NAACP in their first annual environmental fair, which is going to be held in December. And I will be attending a meeting of the NAACP tonight to start talking about those plans.
Do you have the date for that?
I believe a tentative date is December 14th. Also, October 5th, we had Bensonville held their household hazardous waste event, and I understand estimate of about 300 cars attended the event. So, you know, we really still are trying to promote our hazardous waste facilities, and staff came up with these 2 cards regarding our hazardous waste facilities. So, if anybody's interested, you know, you can hand these out in your districts because we really want to promote recycling of hazardous waste. So that concludes my comments on that. And I will move on authorization for overnight travel, building and zoning staff member to attend the 27th annual Illinois Counties Solid Waste Management Conference 2019 in Springfield, Illinois from October 31st through November 1st for approximate cost of $265.
Been a motion and a second. Member, Madam Clerk, please call.
Covert. Desart. DeCiani. Eckhoff. Elliott. Hart. Healy. Krajewski. Larson. Noonan. Ozak. Pachowski. Renahan. Rutledge. Selman. Tornatori. Zay. 17.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. Thank you, Member Chaplin. On to the order of Health and Human Services, Member Pete DeCiani.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I want to thank our folks at the Care Center and for Mayor Keating, who handles our community services, for all their hard work as always. At this time, I'd like to make a motion on Resolution R0355-19, approval of issuance of payments of DuPage County to energy assistance providers in the amount of $2,775,135.
Motion and a second. Madam Clerk, please call the roll.
Aye.
Eckhoff. Elliott. Hart. Healy. Krajewski. Larson. Noonan. Ozak. Pachowski. Renahan. Rutledge. Selman. Tornatori. Zay. Chaplin. Covert. Desart. 17.
Thank you. Member.
On HHSR 0356-19, a resolution for approval of issuance of payments by DuPage County Energy Assistance Providers through the Low-Income LIHEAP program for the years 2020 in the amount of $1,477,620. I move on HHSR 035. Oh, sorry.
Leave is granted. Member DeCiani.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I move on HHSR 0357-19 for the DuPage Care Center rate increases on various standard days rates from 310 to 319 for standard custodial, 335 to 345 per day for Alzheimer's care, and 532 to 548 for post-acute care.
Leave is granted.
I move on change order HHSP 0227B18. It's a resolution issued to Lakeshore Dairy to increase contract the amount of $3,100 for a total contract of $69,426.
There's been a request for roll call. There's been a motion and a second. Madam Clerk, please call the roll.
Aye.
Eckhoff. Elliott. Hart. Healy. Krajewski. Larson. Noonan. Ozak. Pachowski. Renahan. Rutledge. Selman. Tornatori. Zay. Chaplin. Covert. Desart.
13 and 4?
Yeah, 14.
14?
No, 13.
13 voting aye, 4 voting nay. The resolution is adopted. Member DeCiani.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I move the combined items E and F, both authorizations overnight travel.
On a motion and a second, all those in favor say aye. Opposed, nay. The ayes have it. Please proceed.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I move on overnight travel item E, in the amount of $814, in item F, in the amount of,
Where is that
no
amount?
dollars. All expenses paid by NYC.
On a motion and a second. Mr. Krajewski, are you seeking recognition on this matter? There's been a motion and a second. Mr. Krajewski.
Question for Paul Rafek, because we were talking earlier about this, but on these grant-funded items here, is the staff actual time included in the grant fund? And I know on F where he says it's no cost to the county. I know we got travel is covered, but have we allocated the staff's time? You know?
In terms of this one in particular, I'm not sure, but I think this would be, all of the staff time would be covered by the grant.
Yes, the travel that's funded by the grant, employees whose salary and benefits are also covered by the grant, so the grant would be covering their time as well as the travel expenses.
So we're covering their time for the 4 days out there through these grants?
Through the grants, yes.
Okay.
Yeah, as long as it's a grant-funded headcount, their grant-funded travel also includes their grant-funded salary.
Okay, and some of your grants include, that you include staff time that you can allocate towards it and other ones not?
About 75% of our staff headcount are actually grant-funded headcount. So yes.
Their salary's covered by that?
Yeah, their salaries are covered.
Great, thank you.
The vast majority of the department is funded through grants, both through what we provide to clients and the time, the salary and benefits of our employees.
Thanks.
Thank you. Seeing no further discussion, there's been a motion and a second. Madam Clerk, please call the roll.
DeCiani.
Aye.
Eckhoff. Elliott. Hart. Healy. Krajewski. Larson. Noonan. Ozog. Pachowski. Renahan. Rutledge. Selman. Tortori. Zay. Chaplin. Covert. Desart. 17.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, sir. On the order of judicial public safety, Mr. Grant.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I would move approval of JPS 271-19, recommendation for the approval of contract purchase order to Dare Graphics and Custom Filing, Inc. for the 2020 case file system for the circuit court clerk.
Been a motion and a second. Madam Clerk, please call the roll.
Eckhoff. Elliott. Hart. Healy. Krajewski. Larson. Noonan. Ozog. Pachowski. Renahan. Rutledge. Selman. Tortori. Zay. Chaplin. Covert. Desart. DeCiani. 17.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. On to the order of Public Works, Mr. James Healy.
Mr. Chairman, I move approval of FMP 268-19 to Builders Chicago Corporation provide preventive maintenance for overhead doors, total contract $192 for lowest responsible bid.
There's been a motion and a second. Madam Clerk, please call the roll.
Krajewski. Larson. Noonan. Ozog. Pachowski. Renahan. Rutledge. Selman. Tortori. Zay. Chaplin. Covert. Desart. DeCiani. Eckhoff. Elliott. Hart. 17.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. Mr. Healy.
I move for approval of FMP 269-19 to GB LED Services or Lead Services to provide pistol range maintenance in an amount not to exceed $34,450 for the lowest responsible bid.
Leave is granted. Mr. Healy.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I move for approval of PWR 359-19, a contract agreement with Stormwater and Public Works participating with the DuPage Salt River Salt Creek Workforce membership dues in the amount of $263,762.
Leave is granted.
Mr. Chairman, that's all.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Healy. On to the order of Stormwater, Mr. James Zay.
Good morning, Mr. Chairman. On a committee update, I just want to bring one thing up. Last week, our own Tony Charlton was honored with the 2019 Illinois chapter of the American Society of Civil Engineers Government Engineer of the Year. Just so you know, Tony was only one of 2 people. Tony got the Young Government Engineer of the Year. Only 2 people in the state of Illinois have that, or are still alive to say that they got that. So, and it's a great honor for Tony. He started here in the county in 1985. He's been at the county 34 years, and he's been our Director of Stormwater for the last 19. So, congratulations. I know he loves when I do that to him. So, my first item, Mr. Chair, I move on SMR 36119, recommendation approval acceptance of land donation contiguous to county-owned property within St. Joseph's Creek watershed.
Been a motion and a second, Madam Clerk.
Zay.
Aye.
Kaplan. Covert. Desart. DeCiani. Eckhoff. Elliott. Hart. Healy. Krajewski. Larson. Noonan. Ozog. Pachowski. Renahan. Rutledge. Selman. Torritori. 16.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. Mr. Zay.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I move on SMR 36219, recommendation acceptance of temporary construction easement with Ali in the amount of $1, Mazel Court Drainage Project.
Leave is granted. Mr. Zay.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Move on SMP 27519, agreement with DuPage County Environmental Consulting Technology for professional engineering services, amount of $95,000.
Leave is granted. Mr. Zay.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Move on SMP 27419, intergovernmental agreement with the Village of Westmont Water Quality Improvement Program, amount of $51,011.10.
Leave is granted. Mr. Zay.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Move on SMP 27319, approval of contract issued to Water Well Solutions for labor material for the amount of $92,800.
Leave is granted.
Mr. Chairman, this is my favorite. Recommendation to approve modification 2 of interdepartmental memorandum of understanding for project CDBG DR6, Warrenville West Branch DuPage River Improvement Program. Anybody can say second, between the DuPage Community Development Company. Thank you.
And a motion and a second. Request for leave. Leave is granted.
Thank you,
Mr. Zay. A fine report. On to the order of technology. Mr. Greg Hart.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I move approval of TEP 26519, recommendation for the approval of a contract to CDW government.
Been a motion and a second. Madam Clerk, please call the roll.
Healy. Krajewski. Larson. Noonan. Ozog. Pachowski. Renahan. Rutledge. Selman. Torritori. Zay. Chaplin. Covert. Desart. DeCiani. Eckhoff. Elliott. 16.
Thank you, Madam Clerk.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Approval of TEP 276-19, recommendation for the approval of a contract purchase order to N4 US Inc. for Microfocus Cobalt licensing.
Leave is granted. Mr. Hart.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I move approval of TEP 277-19, recommendation for the approval of contract purchase order to N4 US Inc. for ERP software maintenance and support.
Leave is granted. Mr. Hart.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I move approval of TEP 278-19, recommendation for the approval of a contract purchase order to CDWG Inc.
Leave is granted. Mr. Hart.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Move approval of TEP 279-19, recommendation for the approval of a contract purchase order to IBM Corporation.
Leave is granted.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I move approval of TEP 280-19, recommendation for the approval of a contract to Insight Public Sector.
Roll call, please.
It's been a motion and a second. Request for a roll call. That's always in order. Madam Clerk, please call the roll. Key recognition?
Yes, sir.
Yes.
Thank you, Chairman. So at our last board meeting, we approved a purchase of laptops and docking stations for the Judicial Center, and we're approving laptops here as well. I asked Mr. Carlson the shape of those things that we're replacing, and his answer to me this morning was that these were 4 to 5 years old. As a matter of principle, moving forward, until we start to address the shape of our voting machines, I'll be voting no on any equipment upgrades. I understand the burden that the clerk's department is having, trying to move through the poll books and move on to the issue of voting machines, but based on the comments by League of Women Voters and NAACP this morning, I think that the public, as well as myself, have concerns about these machines going into our election next year, and I believe that we need to start the discussion of where can we find funds to make this happen sooner rather than later. So thank you for allowing me my comments.
Further discussion? Seeing none, there's been a motion and a second and a request for roll call. Madam Clerk, please call the roll.
Hart.
Aye.
Healy. Krajewski. Larson. Noonan. Ozog. Pachowski. Renahan.
No.
Rutledge.
No.
Selman. Toratori. Zay. Chaplin. Covert. Desart.
No.
DeCiani. Eckhoff. Elliott.
Ten voting aye, 5 voting nay. The resolution is adopted. Mr. Hart.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Last G is an authorization for travel for the RMS manager to attend the 2019 Hexagon User Group Conference in Westminster, Colorado.
Been a motion and a second. Madam Clerk, please call the roll.
Hart. Krajewski. Larson. Noonan. Ozog. Pachowski. Renahan. Rutledge. Selman. Toratori. Zay. Chaplin. Covert. Desart. DeCiani. Eckhoff. Elliott. 16.
16 voting aye, none voting nay. The resolution is adopted. Thank you, Mr. Hart. Report. Okay, moving on to the order of transportation, Mr. Don Pachowski.
Good afternoon, Mr. Chairman. Under committee update, I'd like to announce that the Division of Transportation was selected of one of 8 counties nationwide to participate in a federal highway administration effort with the states of Illinois and Idaho to provide technical training, assistance, and support in developing a local highway safety plan. And this will focus on policies, procedures, and data collection requirements and the need to serve as a model for other local agencies and prioritizing projects and strategies to improve safety on our local roads.
Very
Chris
nice.
Snyder, where is he? All right, and then that being said, I'd like to approve DTR 35219, a license agreement with the County of DuPage and Forest Preserve District for construction access.
And a motion and a second. Madam Clerk, please call the roll.
Pachowski. Renahan. Rutledge. Selman. Toratori. Zay. Chaplin. Covert. Desart. DeCiani. Eckhoff. Elliott. Hart. Healy. Krajewski. Larson. Noonan. Ozog. 16.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. Mr.
Move to approve DT 052-19, an ordinance authorizing the execution of an easement agreement between the County of DuPage and Forest Preserve District.
The request for leave is granted. Mr. Pachowski.
Move to approve DTP 26719, a contract to Multi-Service Technology Solutions to furnish safety shoes and work boots.
Leave is granted. Mr.
Move to
Pachowski.
approve DTP 27-19, a contract to Sierra Group for professional engineering services for the 2019 Bridge Inspection Program.
Leave is granted. Mr. Pachowski.
Move to approve DTP 272-19, a contract with Monroe Truck Equipment for plow blades as needed.
Leave is granted. Mr. Pachowski.
Move to approve DTP 81A-19, amendment to a resolution issued to Ozinga Ready Mix Concrete, Inc.
Leave is granted. Mr.
Move to
Pachowski.
approve DTR 57B-18-19, a renewal agreement between the County of DuPage and Oxcart Permit Systems, Inc.
Leave is granted. Mr.
And my
Pachowski.
final, Mr. Chairman, is authorization to travel for the principal civil engineer to travel to Champaign, Illinois from October 16th to the 17th for a traffic engineering safety conference.
Leave is granted. Next item of business after the conclusion of our committee reports, bless you, is old business. Anyone seeking recognition on the matter of old business? Madam Covert, followed by Mr. Hart. Member Covert.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you for the birthday wishes, everybody. I appreciate it.
Should we sing?
Also-
Should we sing happy birthday? Liz, would you like
No,
to
no,
lead
please
us in
don't.
a
Please don't
birthday
sing.
wish?
No, that's okay. I feel like I had to say something. I just wanted to respond to a serious implication that was made today by female board members, certain particular female board members on this board, and I think I should address this because I don't appreciate it. You know, as a woman, I feel that women should be supportive of other women, okay? And implying your own fellow colleague of corruption or whatever was implied by Member Ranahan, Member Chaplin, Member Ozog, I don't appreciate that. We need to work together, especially in roles of leadership. We are leaders on this county board. Any weaponizing of gender that I hear on this county board only sets women back 20 years. And it's also offensive to other women, and it's also offensive to the transgender community and the non-binary community as well. So I would appreciate it if we don't have this acrimony here and weaponizing of gender and attacking other women. We can't have this. We got to work together. I have never been attacked by a man on this county board, but I've been constantly attacked by the female members, some of the female members on this board. And I'd appreciate it if that could stop, because my job goes beyond posting on Facebook. My job goes beyond posting pictures and opinions on Facebook. And that's all I would request, that we just keep it civil in here. Thank you.
Thank you, Member Covert. Anyone? Thank you. Member Ozog, please.
I would just like to address the comments that Member Covert just made. This had nothing to do with your gender. It had everything to do with the fact that you had visited a vendor about this situation, the $2 million contract we were talking about today. That has nothing to do with gender, okay? And I don't know where that came from or where it has anything to do with the transgender community. If we question why something like this would be brought up today after we know that they had done an RFP, they had done a proper search, we are able to do that. And if you don't like the fact that I'm a woman bringing that up, I'm sorry, but the bottom line here is that I question why that would be brought up today when they've already done all of this work and you've also visited them. So that, I believe, is something that we should all be aware of. If you are contacted by a vendor, then I think it's something that you should disclose to your fellow board members, and you should say, this is what I discussed, this is where I went, and I think that's something that the public deserves as well. And that has nothing to do with gender, and it has nothing to do with whether, no one was attacking, we were simply questioning. So, but it does not have anything to do with gender.
Member Ranahan.
Thank you. Basically the same. It had nothing to do with gender. That, you know, I'm an advocate for women. Worked in women's clubs. I have 2 daughters of my own. I would certainly never attack anyone on the basis of sex. This is purely bringing up something very late to the board that could have been vetted in finance. It could have been vetted at a committee level. It came as a last-minute kind of around the side situation that I was kind of a head-swiveling moment actually because that it was being brought up at all. So I apologize if you feel that way, but that is certainly never the intent.
Further discussion. Mr. Followed by Mr. Hart, followed by Mr. Pachowski, followed by Mr. Larson.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. You know, last several weeks we've been hearing about our election equipment and the integrity of it. And this concerns me because I think we're sending a message out there that we have a problem with the integrity of our voting equipment. And that's not the case. I mean, Madam Clerk actually said that in the Daily Herald, that the equipment's not the best, but the integrity of people's vote is not in question. And I continue to worry that we're sending a bad message out there that people's votes are not being counted. It's never been the case here in DuPage County. The integrity of our votes has never been questioned. And people said they came here and they touched, and that would, I mean, if that would have happened on a large basis, I guarantee a lawsuit would have been filed at that point if it was found that people were touching a screen and that were voting for somebody else. You know, again, I think the clerk has addressed this. The integrity of people's votes is not in question. The equipment's not the best. We've had problems in the past, obviously, with the speed of getting the results out to people, but people's votes have always counted in this county, and we continually hear that we're disenfranchising people and their votes aren't counting. That's not the case. The clerk understands it more than anybody. She's been an advocate for that for years. We're looking at getting new equipment, and but in the meantime, this election's coming up. People's votes do count, and they're being tabulated the right way. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Further discussion, Mr. Hart.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I know we have a lot of spirited debates in this boardroom, oftentimes bordering on contentious, but today I want to pause real briefly and just shed some light on some positive news that we received last week. As all of us are aware, last week Sterigenics has decided to permanently leave Willowbrook, permanently leave DuPage County. And I think what this welcome news shows is that really the power of individuals, the power of communities to form together and to advocate for a certain position should not go unnoticed. That's what happened here. I want to thank the Stop Sterigenics group for all of their advocacy on this matter. There's no question what was achieved would not have been possible without them. But I really want to thank, Mr. Chairman, you and all the members of this board, because all of us signed a letter emphasizing the importance of this issue. You know, it's easy to have partisan debates, but I think what this departure of Sterigenics shows is that the true power of bipartisanship can mean a lot, and that's what happened in our community last week. So thank you all, and thank you, Mr. Chairman, for your leadership on that issue.
Thank you, Mr. Hart. Mr. Pachowski.
It seems sometimes that we really get, I don't know if we get personal or just these attacks or animosity, and it's really not the way this board should run. You know, if somebody wants to call somebody and find out something, I don't know what they do on environmental, if somebody called on it, or whether it be stormwater or something. But, you know, it just seems that we're taking these little personal attacks on it, but it makes it difficult to be on a board and function. And hopefully, I'd like to keep everything positive. And if there's a problem with somebody, I would think we should do it in person rather than on the board floor.
Mr. Eckhoff?
I didn't win at the auction. I didn't have my hand up.
I thought you, oh, you were, okay, you were just
Contemplating.
waving at me. Member Renahan?
All right, thank you, Mr. Chairman, and thank you, Member Hart, for bringing up Sterigenics. I think a collective sigh of relief went out across DuPage County. I mean, what a significant accomplishment that happened through really the power of people. As we know, nothing more important than health and safety, and I'd like to also offer my sincere appreciation to everyone who worked on this on the DuPage County Board. It really took a county, from the chairman, board members Chaplin and Hart specifically, State Attorney's Office, Lisa Smith and Greg Vasey. You're on the front lines. Joint Hines in Environmental, keeping all the data up to date for everyone to know. Karen Ayala, Health Department. Of course, our state and federal legislators, mayors, and managers. But, you know, as Member Hart said, mainly the community members, our Stop Sterigenics group, advocated fiercely every day. What an accomplishment, what a victory, and I'm just so very proud and just so very relieved.
Were you member? I can't recall. Okay. Oh, member DeCiani.
I wanted to give it to talking about ladies, and it touched my life. We lost our clerk from the city of Elmhurst, Patty Spencer. We buried Patty last week. Patty fought breast cancer, of all things that we are, you know, doing this month and trying to, you know, help people that are battling this issue. But Patty served under 4 mayors. She served alongside me for 4 years. I always used to like to call her Queen, because she was, to me, she was more than just a clerk. She was like royalty. She was a dedicated servant to this county and to our fine city, and it was a pleasure to work with such a dedicated woman. Lastly, I wanted to give a shout out to my wife. Today's our 25th anniversary. So Rosie, who's also a dedicated woman in the Health and Human Services field at Loyola. So thank you, Rose, for all your help in serving me and our family, and that's it for me. So all about ladies today. Thank you.
Thank you. Further discussion on the of business, Mr. Larson.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Briefly, on the issue of bipartisanship. We have a lot of important work to do here on this board. We represent a community of 930,000 people. There are important things to do. We have accomplished an important goal today in getting e-poll books to the Election Commission, and we did that in a bipartisan fashion. When a particular board member is called out for asking questions, and respectfully to other board members who have raised some of those questions, when I've sat on that dais running the Finance Committee and somebody has called out a board member for why they're asking the question, now I have defended that board member and said they're entitled to raise those questions. If they're able to raise them to staff earlier, great. If not, Certainly, this is a public body, and everybody has an opportunity to raise the questions when they do so, and I don't think it's in the spirit of bipartisanship or overt discussion that we can have with everyone to call somebody out or create a suspicion that they've done something inappropriate. There was an issue raised, respectfully, Member Chaplin, about gender. You raised the issue about whether or not there are gender-specific issues in the way things are treated. And so I think that's, I'm not here to speak for Member Covert, but I think that's the issue that she addressed. I have defended my colleagues on the other side of the aisle, so to speak, to try to get gender issues out of there, because we should all not only be bipartisan, but not making decisions based upon race, gender, or anything else, other than the overriding concern, which is the interests of the taxpayers of DuPage County. So hopefully we can move forward in that spirit. If anybody ever sees me doing something to the contrary, I feel free to call me out on it, but I would hope that we can work together to accomplish the business of the people of DuPage County.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Next order, I think. Anyone else seeking recognition on old business? On to the order of new business. New business, looking forward. Mr. Tornatore is on his feet.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I am pleased to report that yesterday the DuPage County Health Department announced a $1.164 million grant from the United States Department of Justice for over a 3-year period with partners in the Sheriff's Office and the Coroner's Office to develop a cohesive model to address data gaps regarding opioid use in DuPage County. The strategies here are to deliver medication-assisted treatment at the jail, to collect and utilize data to determine opioid use in DuPage County, and to implement a cross-sector overdose fatality review team led by the DuPage County coroner. I can't help but to be very happy and proud, not only on behalf of the health department, but thinking back about 6.5 years ago when Dr. Jorgensen came here and talked to us about this, and we had no money at all in the budget for opioids, and we came up with $50,000 in the budget to get started. We've come a long way, thanks to the sheriff, to the coroner, to our partners, to the HOPE Task Force, to Congressman Foster, who was here yesterday, to Congressman Christian Morthy, and to those representatives that we have in Washington, otherwise known as lobbyists, who helped us get this money. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Tornatore. Further discussion on the order of new business. Member Chaplin.
Thank you, Chairman. October is also Domestic Violence Month, I believe. So I just wanted to bring that up because it is important that, you know, it's a huge issue, especially here in DuPage. So besides Breast Cancer Month, domestic violence is also recognized in the month of October. Also, last Friday, I attended a METRA meeting down at IIT, and the meeting was basically about trespassing and suicides and accidents on the railways. Last year, there were 1,084 railway fatalities. 261 of those were suicides that they could actually report as suicides. 536 trespassing, 263 heavy rail, 7 employee, and 17 other. These accidents on the railways, just locally, one pedestrian accident affects 50,000 people with that accident. Metro moves 140,000 people every day. They move a village, and they have the same issues that a village has when they're moving their people. They have people that have heart attacks on trains. They have people that are sick. They have trespassing incidents, like I mentioned. So it's really an important job that they have. During rush hour, a train goes through Metra every 4.5 minutes. They have 13 to 1,400 trains a day in the Chicago terminal alone, and that's including freight. So it really is such an important asset to us. And the interesting thing about the meeting was that the collisions with cars and rail and trains has gone down almost to nothing, and you see the trespassers going up now in the suicides. So it's a really important issue that we try to get that message out about railway safety because, you know, it affects families, it affects commuters' home, and it does affect our economy with the 50,000 people that affects when an incident does happen. And I believe those conclude my, oh, and also just with the vendor, what we were talking about. Just I really want to make it something, a quick notice on this. I think we should develop some kind of board policy on that, because if you do go visit a vendor when we're under contracts and then you come to the board floor and try and say that you're not for that, it does look, a little bit that there could, I'm not saying it was, but I mean, that's why we try not to deal with vendors before. So I think maybe there should be a policy in place that if we do talk to a vendor that, during contract negotiations or close to contract negotiations, that there be some guidelines or something like that. Because I said it could put a board member in a position that they didn't even mean to be in. So that concludes my comments.
Further discussion, order of business, Member DeCiani.
Coming Monday, the Italian American community will be celebrating a very special day called Columbus Day. And many of us on the board here, many of my fellow seatmates are of Italian descent. Some are half Italian, half Irish, like myself. And like last year, we had an Irish girl lead the St. Patrick's Day Parade. This year we have an Italian-Polish-Irish girl leading the Columbus Day Parade, and it's my daughter Natalie. So thank God for Rose, because she doesn't look like me. She looks more like her mother. But myself, Mayor Saviano, and Rich Pellegrino will be on the reviewing stand announcing the parade. So if you're down in Chicago, we will definitely acknowledge you. Please come out and support the Chicago Parade. And you'll see a really cute girl with a crown on from DuPage County, right up from Elmhurst, Illinois, Natalie Rose DeCiani. So come on out and support the Italian community. I think we've done a great job in representing our people. I think we're passionate. We love food. We love commerce. We love family. We're leaders. And so I think it's exciting, and I'm proud to have such a lovely daughter represent the community. Thank you.
Further discussion on new business, Member Sart.
Thank you, Chairman. I just had a policy suggestion, and that is when I served on the IPST 204 School Board of Education, we got our board packets on the Tuesday before our Monday meeting, and if we had any questions for administrators, the administrator who we asked questions of sent the answers to all of the school board members, not just to the one asking the questions. And when I'm going through the board packet for DuPage County Board, I sometimes think, I wonder if other people have this question. So in that spirit, I did send a couple of questions to administrators about different things. And actually those things went through, unanimously, so nobody had the questions apparently. But I wondered if we would like to take up the policy where if I have a question or if any member has a question, to send the answers to all of the board members. Thank you.
Okay. Further discussion on the order of new business? Zay.
Just concerned today because it seems like every meeting we're getting, it gets to a fever pitch here. We had a member today, it's just accusing of men versus women on the board floor. And I don't think that's the case. I don't look at it that way. I look at it as members versus members on the board. I mean, I know we have a very different, unique circumstances here with 11 men and 7 female board members. But to say that, I've never heard that. I had several members from the back row tell me that they were upset and concerned about those comments. I don't think that's the case. I don't think anyone has ever said, I've ever heard from my members on the board, these women don't know what they're doing. We've never said that. I think we've treated everybody with respect. I think you've treated us with respect. I hope we treat you with respect. But again, it seems to be every meeting it gets to a fever pitch here, and I hope we can come to some resolution here that this animosity and this men versus women thing really needs to end at this point, because it's not men versus women. It's okay to have a difference of opinion. I didn't agree with something on Health and Human Services Day. We have questions all the time. It's not personal. It's a great line. Pete knows from The Godfather when he says, it's not personal, it's business. And that's what it comes down to. It's business. We're here to represent our people in our districts. And I just am concerned every meeting it seems to step up another level. And I hope we could, remember that we're here to serve our people, and that by us fighting and making charges like that, it really doesn't do any good for this board. So thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. Thank you for the discussion on the new business. Covert.
I do. I was thinking some of the questions that came up today with even past discussions of members recusing themselves, campaign donation money, contacting vendors, non-vendors, RFP process. I think we need to have a refresher course in ethics and kind of revisit that, because there are ethical rules, what you can do and what you cannot do. And I think we just need to have a refresher course of what you're allowed to do. Because as county board members, I get calls from different states. I get calls from Michigan or California, ask me questions. They're not vendors. They're nowhere close to that. They don't even have but we need to maybe have an email sent out to all the county board members to talk about what is appropriate, what is not, and really understand how the rules and procedures work. So if we have a better understanding of the ethics here, then we wouldn't have this confusion on the county board.
Right.
Yeah.
I agree. Thank you. That's a good. The order of new business, seeing hearing none, I'm advised there is not a matter to come before us on the order of executive session, so I'll entertain a motion to adjourn. There's been a motion and a second to adjourn this meeting of the September session to adjourn to Tuesday, October 22nd at 10 a.m. for passage of the property tax levy pursuant to 35 ALCS 200/18-10. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, nay. The ayes have it. Meeting adjourned.